Deep within each of us lies a force shaping our actions, decisions, and relationships in ways we don't always understand. It's invisible, often hidden, yet it drives so much of who we are. Carl Jung, the brilliant Swiss psychologist, uncovered the profound impact of archetypes, universal patterns of behavior deeply embedded in our psyche. These archetypes govern the way we interact with the world, how we see ourselves, and how we respond to the challenges life throws our way. But what if these forces are not as passive as they seem? What if the archetypes in their power are secretly steering the course of your life in ways you can't see? Imagine your life choices, the career you've chosen, the relationships you've formed, the conflicts you face, are not entirely yours, but are instead echoes of ancient, powerful forces within. Jung believed that understanding these forces is the key to unlocking your full potential. By recognizing the influence of these hidden patterns, you can begin to break free from automatic behaviors, reclaim your true self, and take control of your destiny. In this video, we're diving deep into the 4 major Jungian archetypes that secretly drive your life choices. You'll discover not only the powerful impact they have on your decisions, but also how you can use this awareness to transform your life. We like to think we're in control of our choices, that our decisions come from rational thought or personal preference. But what if something deeper is pulling the strings? What if your likes, dislikes, relationships, career paths, and even your fears are being shaped by forces you're not fully aware of? Carl Jung believed that the human mind is not just a conscious machine making logical decisions, but a complex system with hidden layers that profoundly shape who we are. You might think you chose your career based on interest or income, but have you ever considered that your choice might be influenced by a need to fulfill a role, an inner character you've unknowingly taken on? Maybe you act confident and sociable around others, but inside you feel the opposite. Or maybe you've had dreams that feel deeply emotional, symbolic, or mysterious, but you can't explain why. According to Jung, these aren't random. They're expressions of deeper parts of your psyche, parts he called archetypes. An archetype isn't just a character in a myth or movie. Jung saw archetypes as universal templates that live in our collective unconscious, a kind of mental blueprint shared by all human beings across time and cultures. These archetypes live inside each of us and show up in how we think, dream, relate, and behave. They're not directly visible, but their influence is powerful. They shape your behavior in the same way gravity shapes the movement of the planets, quietly but with force. We inherit these archetypes as part of our human nature. They include figures like the mother, the hero, the mentor, the trickster. But 4 of them, Jung said, are especially central to shaping the self: the persona, the shadow, the anima or animus, and the self. These are not random ideas. They are patterns that reflect parts of the human condition. Every person, no matter where they come from, encounters these archetypes as they grow and develop. They are not roles we consciously choose. They emerge from deep within us and often drive our decisions without our realizing it. Think about the last time you acted in a way that surprised you. Maybe you lashed out at someone when you're usually calm, or you found yourself strangely drawn to someone completely different from you. Moments like these are often signals that unconscious forces are at work. Jung's theory helps us understand that we are more than just our surface personalities. Beneath our everyday decisions lies a psychological landscape that is ancient, symbolic, and deeply meaningful. What makes Jung's ideas so compelling is that they help us understand not only ourselves, but also our relationships, our patterns, and even the direction of our lives. When you begin to uncover these hidden forces, you start to realize that much of what you thought was you is actually a complex interplay of inner characters, some helpful, some sabotaging, some waiting to be understood. For example, you might spend years building an identity that pleases others only to feel empty inside. Or you might rebel against society's expectations, only to later feel lost and disconnected. Both paths are often shaped by archetypes. Without knowing it, you might be trapped in the persona, your social mask, or haunted by your shadow, the parts of yourself you've rejected. Jung believed that true personal growth comes from becoming conscious of these unconscious forces. He called this process individuation. It means integrating all parts of yourself, even the parts you don't like or understand. It's about bringing light to the dark corners of the psyche so you can live with more freedom, authenticity, and awareness. This doesn't mean we can ever be completely free from archetypes. They are part of our structure. But when we become aware of them, we can stop being passive participants in our lives. Instead of being unconsciously driven by them, we begin to work with them, understanding when the shadow is trying to speak or when the persona is taking over. This is where true self-awareness begins. So, are you really in control of your life? The truth is, not entirely, but you can become more conscious. And when you do, life doesn't just happen to you. You begin to shape it from a place of understanding, depth, and wholeness. That's the path Jung invites us to walk, a path not of control, but of inner discovery. Carl Gustav Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who forever changed how we understand the human mind. Born in 1875, Jung was not just a scientist. He was also a philosopher, a spiritual thinker, and a deep explorer of the unconscious. While he started his career working closely with Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, Jung's ideas eventually took a very different path. Where Freud focused on childhood experiences and sexuality as the root of human behavior, Jung believed the psyche was far more complex, mysterious, and symbolic. Jung introduced the idea that our psyche is made up of three layers: the conscious mind, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. The conscious mind is what we're aware of in our daily life, our thoughts, intentions, and choices. The personal unconscious holds memories, fears, and desires that we've repressed or forgotten. But Jung's most groundbreaking concept was the collective unconscious, a deeper layer of the mind shared by all humans, filled with ancient images and patterns he called archetypes. Jung believed that these archetypes are inherited, not learned. They are universal. For example, every culture has stories of heroes, wise elders, nurturing mothers, and dangerous tricksters. These figures show up in myths, religions, dreams, and art across the world. That's not a coincidence, Jung argued. It's because these images come from a shared psychological foundation that exists in every human being. One of Jung's most powerful contributions was his understanding of symbols. He believed that the unconscious speaks to us through dreams, fantasies, and even coincidences, what he called synchronicity. If you've ever had a dream that seemed deeply meaningful but hard to explain, Jung would say that your unconscious mind is trying to communicate with you using symbols. These symbols often come from the archetypes that live within the collective unconscious. Jung's work also emphasized the importance of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming the person you truly are. Unlike Freud, who saw mental health as the ability to manage conflict and control urges, Jung believed that real healing comes from integrating all aspects of yourself. Light and dark, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious. The goal isn't perfection, it's wholeness. This is where Jung's relevance today becomes crystal clear. In a world that often encourages people to wear masks, hide emotions, and chase external success, Jung's work reminds us to turn inward. It encourages deep self-reflection. It challenges us to face our fears, understand our shadows, and connect with a sense of meaning that goes beyond money or status. Modern psychology, coaching, and even popular culture have all been influenced by Jung. Terms like shadow work, inner child, persona, and self-actualization are rooted in his teachings. Even personality tests like the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, are based on Jung's theory of psychological types. He also explored how spirituality plays a role in mental health. Jung didn't promote any specific religion, but he believed that spiritual experiences were essential to understanding the full self. He often said, "People don't have ideas, ideas have people." He meant that powerful forces within the psyche can take over if we're unaware of them. But by understanding and integrating those forces, we can live with more freedom and insight. Jung's ideas weren't just theories. He spent years exploring his own unconscious through dreams, visions, and journaling. His famous Red Book, which he kept private during his lifetime, contains deeply symbolic artwork and writings about his inner journey. Today, it is seen as one of the most important psychological documents of the 20th century. So why does Carl Jung's work still matter? Because he gave us a map of the inner world, a language to explore the unseen parts of ourselves. In an age of distractions and surface-level thinking, Jung invites us to dig deeper. He teaches us that personal growth isn't about fixing yourself, but about knowing yourself, truly, completely, and without fear. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That quote captures the essence of why his work endures. His teachings help us uncover the hidden influences that shape our lives, and in doing so, they open the door to personal transformation that is both powerful and lasting. Archetypes are the invisible forces within your mind that silently influence how you think, feel, and act. Carl Jung described them as universal patterns or images that exist in the collective unconscious, a deeper layer of the human psyche shared by all people, regardless of culture, language, or time period. These archetypes are not just ideas or concepts. They are living parts of the psyche, powerful emotional blueprints that shape your personality, behavior, relationships, and even your dreams. Imagine that your mind is like a stage, and archetypes are the characters that step forward to play different roles throughout your life. You are not always aware of them, but they are always there, guiding, influencing, and sometimes even controlling your decisions. Jung believed that these archetypes arise spontaneously in our dreams, myths, religious symbols, and creative works because they represent core human experiences. You might wonder, where do these archetypes come from? Jung argued that they are inherited, not learned. They are part of our psychological DNA. Just as we inherit physical traits from our ancestors, we also inherit mental structures, these archetypes, that influence how we experience life. This is why people in vastly different cultures still create similar stories. The hero's journey, the nurturing mother, the wise old man, the rebellious outsider. These recurring figures are not copied, they're born from within. Jung distinguished archetypes from archetypal images. The archetype itself is a raw, formless potential, something like an energy or pattern of behavior. When it takes form in your mind, it becomes an image, a symbol, a dream character, or even a recurring theme in your thoughts. For example, the mother archetype might show up as your actual mother, or in dreams as Mother Earth, a teacher, or even a protective animal. What matters is the emotional experience and the role that figure plays in your psyche. These archetypes are so deeply rooted that they can override logic or reason. Think about a time you felt suddenly afraid of something that didn't make sense, or when you were drawn to a person for reasons you couldn't explain. That emotional intensity often points to an archetype at work. They touch something ancient within us, something bigger than our individual stories. One of the most important things to understand is that archetypes are not good or bad. They are simply energies or psychological patterns. However, if they remain unconscious, they can take over and run our lives without our awareness. This is why Jung stressed the importance of becoming conscious of your archetypes. Only when you recognize them can you start to work with them rather than be controlled by them. Let's take an example, the hero archetype. This is the part of you that wants to overcome obstacles, prove your strength, and achieve greatness. It can be a powerful motivator, but if it dominates your psyche, you might ignore your limitations, push yourself into burnout, or become aggressive toward others. On the other hand, ignoring the hero might make you passive or afraid to take risks. The key is to recognize when the hero is active and use its energy wisely. Jung identified countless archetypes, but he believed 4 were central to every person's psychological development: the persona, the shadow, the anima, animus, and the self. Each of these plays a unique role in how we interact with the world and understand ourselves. They are not just psychological ideas, they are inner forces we live with every day. For instance, the persona is the mask you wear in public, the version of you that fits into society. The shadow is the part you hide, reject, or don't even know exists. The anima or animus represents the inner opposite of your gender identity, the feminine side in men, the masculine side in women. And the self is the ultimate goal of psychological wholeness, the integration of all these parts into a balanced, unified individual. When you begin to see these patterns in yourself, you unlock a new level of self-awareness. You start to understand why you react a certain way in relationships, why certain stories or people resonate with you, and even why you're drawn to specific dreams or symbols. Archetypes reveal the deeper story your psyche is trying to tell. Carl Jung believed that confronting and integrating these archetypes is the key to psychological growth. It's not about becoming someone new, it's about becoming more you, by recognizing the many characters that live inside you and learning how to live in harmony with them. Understanding archetypes is like learning the hidden language of your soul. Once you start to recognize them, you begin to understand yourself not as a single identity, but as a complex living system of stories, emotions, and symbols. And from that awareness, true transformation becomes possible. Every day, without even thinking about it, you put on a mask. This mask isn't fake or dishonest, it's necessary. It helps you function in society, play your role, and be accepted by others. Carl Jung called this mask the persona, and he believed it's one of the most important archetypes in your psychological life. But while the persona serves a useful purpose, it can also become a trap, one that disconnects you from your true self if you're not aware of it. The word persona comes from Latin and originally referred to the masks worn by actors in ancient plays. These masks help them portray different characters to the audience. In the same way, your persona is the character you present to the outside world. It's the version of yourself you want others to see. It includes how you speak, how you dress, the roles you play, student, parent, boss, friend, and even the personality traits you emphasize, like being polite, confident, or cheerful. Jung saw the persona as a necessary adaptation. Without it, we couldn't function in social life. Imagine showing all your raw thoughts and emotions in public. It would be overwhelming and chaotic, both for you and for others. The persona helps you filter, organize, and regulate your behavior so that you can navigate different environments. It helps you fit in at work, speak differently with friends than with strangers, and behave appropriately in different cultures or situations. But the problem begins when you identify too strongly with your persona. Over time, you can forget that it's just one part of you, not the whole truth. You might begin to believe that the socially acceptable version of yourself is all you are. In Jung's words, this is like confusing the mask with the face underneath. When this happens, your inner self, the parts that don't fit into your persona, gets buried or denied. Let's take an example. Imagine someone who always acts confident, composed, and successful. That might be their persona, but inside they might feel insecure, anxious, or even lost. If they believe that their persona is their true self, they might start to suppress or ignore those inner feelings. Eventually, the pressure builds. They might burn out, feel empty, or even have a psychological crisis because their inner reality no longer matches the outer performance. The persona also affects your relationships. If you're only showing others a filtered version of yourself, then your connections may lack depth or authenticity. You might feel misunderstood or disconnected, even if people like you. Why? Because they don't know the real you. Only the version you allow them to see. And the more you hide behind the persona, the harder it becomes to reveal your true emotions, desires, or vulnerabilities. Jung believed that in order to grow psychologically, you have to differentiate yourself from your persona. This doesn't mean rejecting it completely. After all, you still need to function in society. But it does mean becoming conscious of when you're wearing the mask, and why. It means asking, is this who I really am, or is this who I've learned to be in order to be accepted? This question can lead to profound self-discovery. Maybe you've always been seen as the responsible one, the strong one, or the nice one. But what happens if those roles no longer serve you? What if they limit you from expressing your creativity, your anger, your sadness, or your dreams? Peeling back the persona is a key part of the inner journey Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating all parts of yourself, not just the parts that are socially approved. One way to become aware of your persona is to pay attention to moments of discomfort. When do you feel like you're performing? When do you feel disconnected from your words or actions? When do you feel tired after social interactions, not because you're introverted, but because you've had to hide a part of yourself? Jung didn't believe the persona was bad. He believed it was essential, but only as long as you don't mistake it for your full identity. Like a good actor, you need to know when to put on the role and when to step off the stage. The more conscious you become of your persona, the more freedom you have. You no longer need to hide behind it. You can use it when needed, but also let your deeper self come forward. The persona is the doorway to social life, but it's not the destination of your inner journey. If you dare to look behind the mask, you'll begin to find the richness, depth, and truth that lies within. And that's when you start living not as a role, but as your whole, authentic self. Beneath the surface of your personality lies a part of you that you rarely show the world. A side made up of thoughts, feelings, and traits you've rejected, suppressed, or simply never acknowledged. Carl Jung called this inner region the shadow, and he believed that until you confront it, it will quietly control your life from the background. The shadow is not necessarily evil, though it can contain destructive tendencies. It's simply the dark side of your personality, not dark because it's bad, but because it's hidden. It includes emotions like envy, anger, fear, laziness, selfishness, and shame, as well as desires or impulses that don't fit with your persona, the socially acceptable mask you wear. But the shadow also contains positive qualities you've ignored: creativity, passion, boldness, or the courage to say no. These are often pushed into the shadow if they were judged or punished in your upbringing. From early childhood, we're taught what's acceptable and what isn't, by our parents, teachers, religion, and culture. Anything that threatens our image of being good, kind, or successful is quietly pushed away. We say, "That's not me." But Jung warned that whatever we don't own, owns us. The shadow doesn't disappear just because we deny it. It shows up in other ways, through emotional outbursts, irrational fears, sudden judgments of others, or projections. Projection is one of the shadow's most powerful tools. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." That means when you're strongly triggered by someone's behavior, maybe their arrogance, their laziness, or their emotional neediness, it may be because that very trait exists in you, hidden in your shadow. You've buried it, but now you're seeing it out there in someone else. That's your psyche's way of pointing to an unresolved part of you. The shadow can also appear in dreams, as threatening figures, monsters, attackers, or mysterious strangers. But Jung didn't believe the shadow should be destroyed. Instead, it should be integrated. Facing your shadow means courageously turning inward and asking, "What am I afraid to see in myself?" It's not an easy process. It involves discomfort, humility, and sometimes even guilt. But the reward is clarity, strength, and authenticity. When you deny your shadow, you become fragmented. You live with a split self, the version you show the world, and the version you hide, even from yourself. This split can cause anxiety, depression, burnout, or a constant sense of emptiness. But when you face the shadow, something powerful happens. You become whole. You begin to reclaim the parts of yourself you've lost. Jung believed that real psychological growth comes not from pretending to be perfect, but from accepting your imperfections. When you acknowledge your envy, for example, you can explore what it's trying to tell you. Maybe it reveals a hidden desire or an area of life where you feel unfulfilled. When you own your anger, you might find the strength to set boundaries or speak up. When you allow your sadness to exist, you open the door to healing. This process is called shadow work, a modern term rooted in Jung's ideas. It involves practices like journaling, dream analysis, meditation, or working with a therapist. But at its heart, shadow work is about honesty. It's about no longer running from the parts of yourself that scare or shame you. And here's the paradox. The more you embrace your shadow, the less power it has over you. You stop projecting, overreacting, or feeling trapped in cycles you don't understand. You become more compassionate, not just toward others, but toward yourself. You stop striving to be good and start becoming real. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That's the essence of shadow work. It's not about fixing what's broken. It's about bringing your full self into awareness, both light and dark, and finding peace in that truth. So the shadow isn't your enemy. It's your hidden twin, your buried truth, your unclaimed power. The day you stop running from it is the day you start to become whole. Deep within your psyche lives a mysterious figure, your inner opposite. If you are a man, it appears as the Anima, the feminine part of your unconscious. If you are a woman, it shows up as the Animus, the masculine element of your inner world. Carl Jung believed that we each carry a psychological counterpart to our conscious gender identity, and this counterpart plays a profound role in how we relate to ourselves, to others, and especially in how we form romantic or emotional connections. The Anima and Animus are not just ideas. They are living archetypes that arise in your thoughts, fantasies, dreams, and projections. They shape the way you perceive the opposite sex, but also the way you relate to emotions, intuition, logic, creativity, and power. According to Jung, we are born whole, with both masculine and feminine energies inside us. But as we grow, culture, family, and society teach us to identify with only one half of that equation. The rest gets pushed into the unconscious, becoming the Anima or Animus. Let's start with the Anima, the feminine inner figure within men. She is the voice of emotion, feeling, intuition, imagination, and connection. She might appear in dreams as a lover, a muse, a spiritual guide, or sometimes a chaotic emotional figure. If a man has no relationship with his anima, he may struggle to understand his emotions or relate deeply to others. He might idealize women unrealistically, fall in love with fantasy, or feel confused by the emotional world. But when a man begins to integrate the anima by listening to his emotions, honoring his vulnerability, and accepting the importance of intuition, he becomes more balanced. He no longer sees emotion as weakness. He becomes richer in empathy, creativity, and inner depth. The animus, on the other hand, is the masculine inner figure within women. He is associated with logic, structure, reason, power, assertiveness, and independence. In dreams or fantasies, he may appear as a wise teacher, a hero, a critic, or even a tyrant. If a woman is disconnected from her animus, she may struggle to assert herself, make decisions, or stand in her power. Alternatively, if her animus is too dominant and unconscious, she might become overly critical, rigid, or emotionally distant. Integrating the animus means building inner strength, not by rejecting emotion, but by combining it with clarity and action. A woman who brings her animus into balance becomes more decisive, confident, and expressive of her ideas. She no longer seeks validation externally, but trusts her inner authority. Jung warned that when the anima or animus remains unconscious, it often leads to projection. For example, a man might project his anima onto a woman, seeing her not as she truly is, but as his inner fantasy, idealizing her as a perfect lover, mother, or goddess. A woman might project her animus onto a man, seeing him as a hero, a rescuer, or a symbol of power. These projections can feel magical, but they often lead to disappointment. Why? Because no real person can live up to an inner archetype. To move beyond this, Jung emphasized the importance of withdrawing the projection, pulling it back inward and realizing, this figure I'm obsessed with is actually part of me. When you do that, something powerful happens. You begin a dialogue with your inner opposite. You develop a relationship with your own inner world. You grow. This inner union is essential for individuation, Jung's term for the process of becoming a whole person. By integrating both the anima and animus, you move beyond the limits of gender roles and step into your full psychological potential. You are no longer controlled by inner fantasies or societal expectations. You become capable of genuine intimacy, not just with others, but with yourself. Jung saw the anima and animus as bridges between the conscious ego and the deeper self. They guide you inward toward transformation. They are not meant to be tamed or denied. They are meant to be understood, embraced, and integrated. So when you feel a sudden emotional pull, a powerful fantasy, or a deep frustration with someone of the opposite sex, pause. Ask yourself, is this about them, or is this a reflection of my own inner life? The anima and animus are mirrors. When you learn to read them, they reveal the parts of you that long to be awakened. Meeting your inner opposite is not a step away from who you are. It's a step closer to your true, complete self. Deep within your psyche lives a mysterious figure, your inner opposite. If you are a man, it appears as the anima, the feminine part of your unconscious. If you are a woman, it shows up as the animus, the masculine element of your inner world. Carl Jung believed that we each carry a psychological counterpart to our conscious gender identity, and this counterpart plays a profound role in how we relate to ourselves, to others, and especially in how we form romantic or emotional connections. The anima and animus are not just ideas. They are living archetypes that arise in your thoughts, fantasies, dreams, and projections. They shape the way you perceive the opposite sex, but also the way you relate to emotions, intuition, logic, creativity, and power. According to Jung, we are born whole, with both masculine and feminine energies inside us. But as we grow, culture, family, and society teach us to identify with only one half of that equation. The rest gets pushed into the unconscious, becoming the anima or animus. Let's start with the anima, the feminine inner figure within men. She is the voice of emotion, feeling, intuition, imagination, and connection. She might appear in dreams as a lover, a muse, a spiritual guide, or sometimes a chaotic emotional figure. If a man has no relationship with his anima, he may struggle to understand his emotions or relate deeply to others. He might idealize women unrealistically, fall in love with fantasy, or feel confused by the emotional world. But when a man begins to integrate the anima by listening to his emotions, honoring his vulnerability, and accepting the importance of intuition, he becomes more balanced. He no longer sees emotion as weakness. He becomes richer in empathy, creativity, and inner depth. The animus, on the other hand, is the masculine inner figure within women. He is associated with logic, structure, reason, power, assertiveness, and independence. In dreams or fantasies, he may appear as a wise teacher, a hero, a critic, or even a tyrant. If a woman is disconnected from her animus, she may struggle to assert herself, make decisions, or stand in her power. Alternatively, if her animus is too dominant and unconscious, she might become overly critical, rigid, or emotionally distant. Integrating the animus means building inner strength, not by rejecting emotion, but by combining it with clarity and action. A woman who brings her animus into balance becomes more decisive, confident, and expressive of her ideas. She no longer seeks validation externally, but trusts her inner authority. Jung warned that when the anima or animus remains unconscious, it often leads to projection. For example, a man might project his anima onto a woman, seeing her not as she truly is, but as his inner fantasy, idealizing her as a perfect lover, mother, or goddess. A woman might project her animus onto a man, seeing him as a hero, a rescuer, or a symbol of power. These projections can feel magical, but they often lead to disappointment. Why? Because no real person can live up to an inner archetype. To move beyond this, Jung emphasized the importance of withdrawing the projection, pulling it back inward and realizing, this figure I'm obsessed with is actually part of me. When you do that, something powerful happens. You begin a dialogue with your inner opposite. You develop a relationship with your own inner world. You grow. This inner union is essential for individuation, Jung's term for the process of becoming a whole person. By integrating both the anima and animus, you move beyond the limits of gender roles and step into your full psychological potential. You are no longer controlled by inner fantasies or societal expectations. You become capable of genuine intimacy, not just with others, but with yourself. Jung saw the anima and animus as bridges between the conscious ego and the deeper self. They guide you inward toward transformation. They are not meant to be tamed or denied. They are meant to be understood, embraced, and integrated. So when you feel a sudden emotional pull, a powerful fantasy, or a deep frustration with someone of the opposite sex, pause. Ask yourself, is this about them, or is this a reflection of my own inner life? The anima and animus are mirrors. When you learn to read them, they reveal the parts of you that long to be awakened. Meeting your inner opposite is not a step away from who you are. It's a step closer to your true, complete self. Have you ever met someone and instantly disliked them, even though you barely knew them? Or perhaps you've fallen deeply in love with someone, only to realize later they weren't who you imagined. These intense reactions aren't always about the other person. They might actually be about you. Carl Jung called this phenomenon projection, and he believed it's one of the most powerful ways the unconscious mind operates in everyday life. Projection happens when you take parts of your own psyche, traits, desires, emotions, or fears, and unknowingly place them onto someone else. Instead of seeing that person as they are, you see them through the lens of your own inner world. Jung said that projection is a natural process. It's how the unconscious tries to communicate with the conscious mind. But when you're unaware it's happening, projections can distort reality and damage relationships. Let's break it down. Suppose you've been taught that anger is bad or shameful. You don't want to admit you ever feel angry, so you push that emotion into your shadow. But your psyche still needs a way to deal with it, so what does it do? It projects that anger onto someone else. You start to see others as aggressive or rude, even when they're not. You're actually reacting to your own denied feelings, reflected back at you through another person. Projection can be both negative and positive. Negative projections make you judge others harshly for traits you secretly fear or dislike in yourself. Laziness, arrogance, neediness. Positive projections, on the other hand, happen when you attribute idealized qualities to someone else. Beauty, intelligence, power, or spirituality. You might say, "He completes me," or "She's so amazing," not realizing you're projecting your own unlived potential onto them. This is especially common in romantic relationships. That intoxicating feeling of falling in love is often a projection of your inner anima, or animus, the inner feminine or masculine archetype. You see in the other person a symbol of wholeness, of everything you think you're missing. But eventually the illusion fades, and you're left with the real person, flawed, human, and not your unconscious fantasy. That's when true love can begin, if you're willing to let go of the projection and build a relationship based on reality. Jung didn't see projection as a mistake. In fact, he saw it as a starting point for self-discovery. Every time you catch yourself reacting strongly to someone, whether it's admiration, disgust, jealousy, or obsession, it's a signal. That emotional charge is your psyche saying, "Look here, there's something about yourself you haven't faced yet." Recognizing projection requires self-awareness and humility. It's easier to blame others than to ask, "What is this showing me about me?" But the moment you do, you begin to reclaim the lost parts of yourself. You stop scattering your power across the world and start gathering it back into your own hands. For example, if you constantly see others as controlling, ask yourself, do I have issues with control? Am I afraid of being controlled or of taking control myself? If you idolize someone's creativity, ask, am I neglecting my own creative potential? These questions turn projections into mirrors, allowing you to meet yourself in unexpected ways. Jung believed that projection is part of the greater journey of individuation, the path to psychological wholeness. To become whole, you must reintegrate what you've projected. This doesn't mean you'll stop projecting altogether. Some level of projection is natural and human, but it means you'll become more conscious of it. And with consciousness comes freedom. In daily life, becoming aware of projection can help you improve relationships, reduce conflict, and grow emotionally. You'll stop expecting others to complete you, fix you, or carry your pain. You'll start seeing people more clearly, not as reflections of your inner world, but as individuals in their own right. In the end, projection teaches us a powerful truth. What you see in others often says more about you than about them. So next time you feel a strong emotional reaction, take a step back. Before judging or idealizing someone, ask yourself, is this them or is this me? That single question can lead you into a deeper, richer understanding of your own soul. Carl Jung believed that the ultimate purpose of life isn't success, wealth, or even happiness. It's individuation. This is the deep psychological journey of becoming your true self, not the version of you shaped by society, family, or fear, but the person you were meant to become from the beginning. Individuation is not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. From the moment we're born, we begin forming a persona, the social mask we wear to fit in, to be accepted, to survive. At the same time, we push parts of ourselves into the shadow, qualities that don't seem acceptable. Along the way, we project, conform, and adapt, slowly forgetting our original self. Individuation is the process of reversing that forgetting. It's a journey back to the center of who we are, guided by symbols, archetypes, dreams, and inner conflicts. But this path is not linear. It doesn't move in straight lines. It's more like a spiral, each stage taking you deeper into yourself. It starts with recognizing the masks you wear and understanding that the version of you that's always been the achiever, the nice one, or the strong one, is only a fragment of your full identity. You begin asking, who am I when I'm not performing for others? Who am I when I'm truly alone with myself? As the process continues, you begin confronting the shadow, the hidden parts of your psyche you've denied. This might be anger, fear, jealousy, or even desires that scare you. At first, it's painful, but slowly you realize that these traits don't make you bad. They make you human. Owning your shadow brings integrity. You no longer live in pieces. You begin to stand in your truth. Along the way, you also meet your inner anima or animus, the psychological opposite within you. If you're a man, your journey may involve reconnecting with your feelings, your vulnerability, and your intuitive side. If you're a woman, it might mean developing inner strength, independence, and confidence. Integrating this inner opposite brings balance, helping you break free from rigid gender roles and find wholeness. One of the most powerful aspects of individuation is recognizing how much of your reality has been shaped by projections. When you realize you've been seeing yourself in others, idealizing, judging, or fearing what you haven't faced in yourself, you begin to pull back those projections. You stop blaming the world, and you begin listening to your own soul. Individuation also involves listening to your dreams, which Jung believed were messages from the unconscious. Dreams speak in symbols. They show you parts of yourself that need attention or healing. As you begin decoding these symbols, you open a dialogue between your conscious mind and your deeper self. This is where transformation happens, not through force but through inner alignment. This journey isn't easy. It often involves a period Jung called the dark night of the soul. You may feel lost, disoriented, or stripped of meaning. But this darkness is necessary. It's the breakdown of your false identity, the crumbling of who you thought you were. And it's in that breakdown that the real you begins to emerge. Importantly, individuation doesn't mean withdrawing from the world. It means engaging with it more authentically. As you become more whole, you start living from your center, not from fear or people-pleasing. Your relationships become more real. Your work becomes more meaningful. You stop trying to be someone and start simply being yourself. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That's individuation. It's not a goal you achieve once and for all. It's a lifelong unfolding. Every challenge, every relationship, every setback is part of that unfolding, each one inviting you to go deeper. And what lies at the center of it all is the self, not the ego, but the deepest core of your being. The self is your inner guide, your source of wisdom, your connection to something larger than yourself. It calls you through symbols, through longings, through moments of clarity. When you listen, you begin to live with meaning. Not because life gets easier, but because you become rooted in truth. Individuation is the journey of a lifetime. It's the quiet, powerful path of coming home to yourself. We all wear a mask. It's not necessarily a mask of deception, but a mask that represents how we want to be seen by others. This mask is called the persona, a term coined by Carl Jung to describe the social identity we present to the outside world. It's the image of ourselves we create in response to societal expectations, family pressures, and personal aspirations. The persona is the version of ourselves that functions in the external world. It's how we act at work, how we behave in social situations, and the roles we take on in relationships. While it helps us navigate through life, it can also become a source of inner conflict if it becomes too rigid or disconnected from our true self. At its core, the persona is a necessary adaptation. Without it, we'd struggle to interact with others, to fit into society, or even to function effectively in the world. It helps us to maintain order, stability, and a sense of belonging. For example, you might have a persona of being a leader at work, or the compassionate friend in your social circle. These roles allow you to contribute and engage with the world in meaningful ways. However, the danger lies in when the persona becomes too entrenched, when you begin to lose touch with the authentic parts of yourself. Jung believed that the persona was essential for survival, but it becomes problematic when you identify too strongly with it. When this happens, the persona turns into a mask you wear so consistently that it starts to feel like who you are rather than what you're presenting to the world. You become overly concerned with how others perceive you, constantly adapting to fit expectations and losing touch with the inner, more authentic aspects of yourself. For example, a person might adopt the persona of being the perfect parent or the successful entrepreneur. While these roles are necessary and can be fulfilling in many ways, if they become too all-consuming, the person might suppress other parts of their personality, parts that are more vulnerable, spontaneous, or creative. The fear of being seen as weak or imperfect can lead them to keep up the persona, even if it no longer feels true to who they are. Jung warned that over-identification with the persona leads to alienation. You may find yourself feeling disconnected from your emotions, your needs, or your deeper desires. The mask might work in the short term, but it's not sustainable in the long run. When you live too much through your persona, you risk losing touch with the true self, the part of you that is more than just roles, labels, or external achievements. One of the greatest challenges of modern life is that many of us have been taught to place an inordinate amount of value on the persona. Society glorifies success, beauty, power, and conformity, qualities that often become exaggerated in the persona. As a result, many people feel a deep inner conflict because they're not living in alignment with their true self. They may have wealth, status, or popularity, but still feel empty or unfulfilled because the inner, authentic self has been neglected. So how do you know if you've over-identified with your persona? One of the first signs is feeling exhausted by the roles you play. You might feel like you're constantly pretending and that the effort to maintain your public image is draining. You might also notice that your relationships feel shallow or disconnected, as if you're engaging with others from a place of performance rather than genuine connection. You might also feel an inner void, as if something important is missing from your life, even though you've achieved the outward success or recognition you were striving for. The solution isn't to discard the persona entirely. After all, it serves a necessary purpose in helping you interact with the world. The goal is to integrate the persona with the true self. This means recognizing that the persona is a part of you, but not the whole of you. It's about acknowledging the mask you wear and then making space for the deeper aspects of yourself that you might have pushed aside. This process of integration involves becoming more self-aware. It's about recognizing the roles you play and questioning whether they are truly aligned with who you are at your core. Are you playing these roles out of a sense of duty, expectation, or fear? Or are you expressing them authentically in a way that feels true to your inner self? A key to this integration is self-acceptance. Accept that there will always be parts of yourself you present to the world, but also allow the hidden aspects of yourself, the vulnerable, creative, spontaneous parts, to emerge. You begin to embrace your contradictions. You can be both strong and vulnerable, ambitious and humble, outgoing and introverted. By making room for all parts of yourself, you create a fuller, more authentic sense of self. Jung believed that this process of integrating the persona is essential for achieving wholeness. In Carl Jung's theory of human psychology, the shadow is one of the most significant, yet often misunderstood aspects of the self. It represents the parts of our personality that we reject, ignore, or deny, those aspects that we deem unacceptable, whether because they contradict societal norms, family expectations, or our own moral compass. The shadow isn't inherently evil, rather it's simply the collection of parts of ourselves that we've repressed because they don't fit with the image we want to project to the world. However, Jung believed that it's precisely these rejected parts of ourselves that hold the key to personal growth and wholeness. The shadow is like the hidden twin of our conscious self, lurking beneath the surface, influencing our thoughts, behaviors, and actions in ways we may not even realize. It holds not just the negative traits we're ashamed of, such as anger, jealousy, or greed, but also positive traits we've neglected, such as creativity, power, or passion. By repressing these parts of ourselves, we lose access to important resources that could enrich our lives. The shadow isn't just a container of negative qualities. It also contains the untapped potential we've buried in our pursuit of an idealized self-image. The challenge lies in recognizing the shadow and understanding its role. Jung argued that projection is the primary mechanism through which the shadow manifests itself. If you find yourself intensely judging or disliking someone, there's a good chance that you're actually projecting your own shadow qualities onto them. For example, if you can't stand someone who is excessively self-centered, it may be because you've denied your own self-centeredness. The things that trigger strong reactions in you, whether positive or negative, often hold a mirror to your own unresolved shadow aspects. Jung believed that the integration of the shadow is crucial for personal development and individuation, the process of becoming your true, whole self. This integration doesn't mean you act out your shadow traits recklessly or without consideration. Instead, it means acknowledging and accepting the existence of these parts within you and understanding their deeper messages. When you recognize the shadow, you stop being at odds with yourself. You stop fighting the parts of you that are unacceptable and learn how to embrace them, using them constructively rather than letting them control you in unconscious ways. For example, if you have repressed anger because you were taught that anger is bad or unseemly, your shadow may express itself as passive aggression or frustration. But if you allow yourself to feel your anger in healthy ways, perhaps by setting boundaries or standing up for yourself, it becomes a source of empowerment. Similarly, if you've denied your own sexuality or creativity, these qualities may emerge in unexpected ways, like in overly impulsive or destructive behavior. By accepting these traits and integrating them into your conscious life, you can express them in ways that are constructive and authentic. The process of facing the shadow can be uncomfortable. It requires you to confront the aspects of yourself that you've been trying to avoid, often leading to feelings of guilt, shame, or fear. But Jung argued that this discomfort is the price of growth. The longer we repress our shadow, the more it has power over us. The more we deny it, the more it manifests unconsciously, in projections, in emotional outbursts, or in destructive patterns of behavior. By integrating the shadow, we break free from this unconscious control. Jung suggested that one of the most powerful ways to confront the shadow is through dream analysis. Dreams offer a direct link to the unconscious mind, and often the shadow appears in our dreams in symbolic form. By paying attention to the figures or situations in your dreams that you find disturbing or unsettling, you can start to see which aspects of your own psyche you're avoiding. Dreams don't offer a simple answer. They provide clues, fragments of the unconscious trying to communicate with the conscious mind. By interpreting these symbols and messages, you can begin to piece together a fuller picture of your own shadow. Another key aspect of shadow work is learning to recognize the gifts that lie within the shadow. While these parts may be uncomfortable at first, they often hold immense creative or transformative potential. The shadow represents a source of vitality that has been shut off or hidden. For instance, the repressed anger of a passive person might be the energy they need to assert themselves, while the repressed sexuality of someone who feels ashamed might be the creative spark they need to bring more passion into their life. By integrating these traits, you become more whole, embracing the totality of who you are. The shadow is also tied to our social persona. We create roles for ourselves in society,